we're just going to go down the line experientially so that we can talk about the effects, because it can have a very positive effect. And ideally, that's the space we're living in, but it can also have a very negative effect. So, can you give an example in your experience of a teenager experiencing cyberbullying?
Okay. Uh, as you know, right, for most of us being adults, we actually had the experience of actual something called, a lot of kids don't remember, probably have no idea it existed, but we had something called textbooks. Yeah, everybody, we actually had a book. Having textbooks somewhat eliminated some of the issues that we see, because now if you have a kiddo that's enrolled in school, everyone is issued an iPad. So a lot of their homework assignments, a lot of the things that they have to complete is done electronically. However, homework is not done 24/7. So these kids occupy their time doing other things such as texting, messaging, playing games, and things like that. Being SROs, one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue that we face is matters and situations that involve the use of these school issued devices. And on these devices, these kids are very creative. They were born into this society in regards to electronics. The things that we as adults have to learn how to do, they do naturally. Okay? It's designed for their use. And sometimes they find themselves in situations where one thing about bullying that we have to remember, it's about perception as well. Oftentimes things are said that may not even be directed towards a particular student. However, if that person feels that way, that's how they're going to view it, and that's how they're going to react to it. I know Sergeant Mitchell know this, but inside it's I haven't seen it as much in the high school, because I feel like the high school kids do a better job of hiding it. Whereas in middle school, I spent 6 years of watching kids say, well, they said this about me and they did this and this. I wasn't talking to you. Yes, you was. You said my name. That was 3 text messages ago. And, sometimes parents have the, concept of, oh, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's nothing to us as parents, but we're talking about kids who prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So they don't have the ability to process things that the same manner that we can as adults. So I always encourage, especially my new SROs, attempt to meet these kids where they are, as opposed to having them think according to how you think as an adult. And so, if anything, I've learned that we have to take it serious, regardless of how minute we may think it is as an adult, because it may be a very big issue to them as young adults.
Mattia, can you give us an example of cyberbullying in the workplace, please?
Sure. So in order to provide an example, contextually, it's important to understand that in the workplace, cyberbullying is a form of bullying. And so bullying itself is generally defined as unwelcome behavior that's repeated and intended to do harm for somebody who is powerless against it. Okay, so either they are actually powerless or they feel or perceive that they're powerless, because that feeling or perception is reality for them, even more so as a child. So these are adults, certainly, that I work with primarily, but that's even more exaggerated, a stronger feeling, a stronger perception as a child. So similar to what T was sharing about the development and the processes that a brain at 12 or 9 is capable of versus a 41-year-old. It's just different. And so the idea that bullying itself is based out of the feeling of being powerless to defend yourself, powerless to defend the behavior, and maybe even powerless to find someone who can, a trusted adult or an ally, as we were talking about today, then you take all of that and you shift that definition to technology, and you remove 60% of your ability to communicate, right? Through body language or tone or facial expressions, animations. And now we're left with not only this intent to harm, but the perception that it's amplified by 100 times. And so we have this really difficult, aggressive, even I'm struggling to find the word because it's so harmful. So I'll stick with that. This harmful situation that has been magnified because it's now cyberbullying. Okay, so in order for us to understand the definition of cyberbullying and for me to contextually give you an example for it from the workplace, it's important to know that our perception, our action from an employee experience perspective is that this is even worse than what has typically been defined as bullying, because all of these other communication elements are removed. And we're not even in a position where we can assume that the intent was positive. Right? The fundamental assumption is that it was negative or meant for harm. And so we have, I will use a non-Coppell because I've only been here 4 months. So I'll use an example from a prior employer. And in this situation, it involved social media. So there's an exchange of words through social media about a highly volatile, highly controversial topic that has occurred in recent years here in our nation. And that exchange then bled over to the workplace and continued on an organization-sponsored social media-like platform. Okay, so there's workplace platforms, of course, that mimic social media. Yammer is an example of one of those. And so when this exchange continued from personal life on social media into work life, and now they're drawing in. Okay, so the offender is now drawing in others from the workplace. So now I had a group of people who agreed with this particular offender and disagreed with the recipient. And then now they have all started to use this organizational platform to pick, poke. They went to their short comments in passing, their one phrase postings. It ended up being even one word was posted, but it's a word associated with the disagreement from the position this one employee had. So then this went on for 6 full months before that employee, and they sat in silence, took it in silence, closed down their social platform, like turned off comments on the social platform outside of work. Can that employee turn off comments at work? No, they cannot. Do you think that put that employee in a powerless position at that point? Can they even turn that off to focus on their work? So now the supervisor recognizes that this employee is no longer performing well. Star employee, now no longer productive, now is withdrawn, no longer engaging in conversation in staff meetings, no longer adding to the conversation. And so the supervisor started to get concerned and reached out and said, hey, is everything going on? Is anything going on? Are you okay? And the employee, no, everything's fine. Everything's good. Dismissive, okay? Dismissive about it. So the supervisor accepted that. Said, okay, well, then I need you to work on your performance, and turn from, are you okay? The person says, yes, I'm fine, turns to, well, then let's navigate your performance issues. And so in this case, the supervisor was thinking they were doing the right thing. Parent, thinking I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to check in on you. Are you okay? And that kid says, child says, yeah, I'm fine. It's just a season. It's just something. It's just a bad day. Dismisses it, right? And so as a parent, we accept. So, okay, well, then let's talk about why your grades aren't what they once were. So in this case, with the employee, another series of 6 months, okay, goes by. And the performance level continues to go down. And now there's aggressive behavior. What we call microaggressions are starting to come out from this employee. Totally different personality than who this person was a year prior. So the supervisor digs in and says, hey, you're really not who you once were. If you don't change this, we're going to have to let you go. And so that employee then said, okay. They got to the point of fear, desperation, and that's when they landed in my office. When they, if that supervisor had recognized, if that person, that employee had felt like they had an ally in one person in the organization, just one, then they could have made all the difference. And this person wouldn't have lived in misery for a year. By the time they got to my office, there was a lot of unraveling to be done. And do you think I started with performance? No, we did not start with performance. We started with what is going on. Tell me. I'm here to listen, and let's do this together. Let's unwind this together, and let's see if we can recover. And you know what that particular employee needed was a year-long healing journey, not a performance improvement plan, but a year-long healing journey. And so at the organization where I worked, where this occurred, that person still works there and is back to being one of the stars at that organization. But it took some investment, and it took somebody, and it ended up not being me. It ended up being another teammate who was in that person's peer group. Now, we had to address and intervene the bullying behavior, and the group that had teamed up against this particular person. But we ended up having to find somebody in that peer group who could become an ally and help that person learn to navigate their environment in a completely different way than they once did. So this is just an example where bullying, then it spirals. The behaviors spiral. And so the good news in that is that there are people who want to help. They want to intervene. They want to become allies. And so it's tapping into folks like you who are here and interested and listening, want to be a part of the conversation, and then becoming equipped and then taking action, which I don't want to get ahead of you. Okay. I don't want to get ahead of you.
So
Thank you.
let's kind of talk about how these things unfold. So there's a number of things that you're hearing that hopefully you've connected, because there's a feeling, right, that happens when all of this is unraveling, and it hits you in the pit of your stomach. And there's this uneasiness that accompanies it. And it makes places that were once very comfortable for you immensely uncomfortable. If it involved photos, or if it involved shame, if it involved smearing your reputation or your name, there's a lot of baggage to unload, right, when it comes forward. So imagine as a parent, when we're having our dialogue with our child, whether that be at the dinner table or in the car when we're riding together, because it has to be at a time when there's this sense of freedom to feel vulnerable, because you've become more closed as the walls come up, okay? So one of the jobs that we're trying to get right here is knowing that we can have that talk and listen. Underestimated here is trust. So I think what we heard was that there may be a natural inclination to distrust because you're feeling vulnerable. So think of how much more important the value of trust is in terms of if there should be a breach of trust, okay? Coming back from a breach of trust is a very long and often non-productive journey, okay? So maintaining trust is the goal. And how many people have an out-of-body experience as he's speaking and thinking, oh, wow, that is so basic, it's common, it's part of relationship, and it seems so commonsensical, right? Unfortunately, when someone is going through it and is inundated, the numbers are staggering when you think of how much a child is inundated with messaging and how much they hold on to the negative messaging. Sadly, the positive side of messaging isn't what's always at the forefront. However, it's there. Marketing proves that. Consumption of these young teenagers and their connection to the dollar proves that all day, every day, that they connect to the messaging. So our job here is to become that same simulation in positive coping mechanisms that relieve anxiety, okay? There are new statistics and huge research as it relates to anxiety. post-COVID world, there's some anxiety about getting back into the stride of things. There's anxiety about failure, the same anxiety that existed before COVID. So some of the things that we're asking a parent to do is to take that journey with their children. We have other ways in life that we're dealing with the exact same baggage. So we're more alike than we are different. And this is where culture and nature versus nurture come in. So we may have a way culturally in our home that we deal with things that is very different than the world your child steps into at Coppell High School or at Middle School North. Know that they're living with multiple cultures. Ideally, your values, your root, your home culture is your dominant culture. However, they must be a chameleon. They go into the school and they have to adapt to the norms and the culture in the school. It starts simple. The indoctrination could be as simple as the code of conduct. It could be your individual teacher's perspective of, hey, check your cell phones here. Let's be kind. Let's speak positive words to each other. So getting down into gaining an understanding of what we are all facing, and you can share your very own experience in how you change hats when you go to work, because your work culture is that same opportunity. So sharing that this is a normal part of life and that we can uplift each other in those transformations in building that trust is the goal. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? There's no such thing as a wrong question. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mohammed.
We talked about, obviously, the definition of bullying and the fact that what we do, people of authority that can deal with it and, where people come to you for help. But so far, I haven't heard about co-peers, peers that can raise the flag, because we seem to be putting the burden on the victim in this case, to be the one that have the courage or build courage enough, to raise the flag or, before it gets too late, like the example of the workplace, and I'm sure there are many examples in schools. So what is our role in the workplace, at home, in the schools, if we see something or detect something, even though the victim may not complain, but we see that that is going to lead to no good? Because in our community, for example, we've had suicide issues. I remember sharing that 6 months ago, a 14 years old, that committed suicide. He was an immigrant from Afghanistan. He couldn't handle the pressure of, the mockery and all the, the things that were going to him in school. And his solution was to commit suicide, which obviously is too late then to do anything about it. I am sure those that were teasing him and making fun of him did not intend for that to happen. So, but I also believe that others may have detected and noticed what's going on and just remain silent, So what do we do in a case like this, as far as the people that surrounding or witnessing events like that?
The thing is, we have a lot of things that people that don't want to say anything is because they don't want to be the ones that pulled the alarm. They don't want to be brought to that attention. So that's why we have the apps, the Say Something's the Stop It app. We have the citywide anonymous tip line. And we look into all these cases that come into us, seriously, that they come, we look into them. We used to have Crime Stoppers, but that we were getting several things that were out of our control. They were not here specifically in our city. We were getting stuff from San Antonio and Irving, and I'm like, Michigan. I remember one. I'm like, I'm not going to Michigan. I'm sorry. And then you don't know which ones are pranks and which ones are real. But if we have any credible information from someone, we encourage the kids to, if you see something, say something. And we're such a small community that most of the time people know if somebody's acting out of character, and they solo themselves out. They get away from everybody. They start acting weird or whatnot. Somebody's going to say something most of the time. But then there's cases like you were just discussing. Yeah, somebody might not have thought it was an issue to address. They don't know the signs. And so what we have in the schools, they're teaching people what the signs to look for. And because it's just, we as adults, we think somebody's acting out of character and we want to look into it further. The kids, they don't. They see somebody, they're just acting weird. Well, maybe we need to see what's wrong with them. But some of the people mostly the ones that have friends, or they just isolate themselves. That's the word I was looking for, isolate. That's the main thing, when they isolate each other. And we have guys in the schools that we know when we see on a daily basis, they might come to our office all the time and they're like, wait, hey, haven't seen this certain particular student in a little while. We'll go look for them. We've been to kids' houses looking for them just to check on them. And they might be ill or whatnot. But the teachers are great about notifying us they want to do that. Well, we can only do what we can, but we rely heavily on the students of the schools to give us that information. But it's got its walking shoes on. It needs to have its sprinting shoes on. And it is an issue. And a lot of times, being here 21 years, unfortunately, a lot of times that stuff happens and nobody has a clue because they overlooked it. And I wish we could say we could have done better if we'd have known. We didn't know. So we try to educate ourselves the best we can. And those unfortunate situations happen. I've seen several of them. I hate to say that I lost count of them. And it's a terrible thing to see. And it's detrimental to the families, detrimental to the community. Because everybody wants to know why. Sometimes there's no why. We just didn't look into it. But the good thing is these kids are aware of it, and most of them, they do take advantage of the apps that we have. I'm glad that they have it, and they just let us know when there's even a concern. It might be something, it might be nothing, but at least we tell somebody that cares. And unfortunately, it's a weekly basis that we at least check on somebody. And I've been to the house. Last week I went to someone's house just to check on them, and for them to know that somebody cares, it makes a world of difference. I don't know if that helped, but
I have a follow-up just to answer.
So as a mama and a grandma, I have 4 granddaughters. Just model the behaviors. He will copy everything you do. That's 1. Know he's always watching. Then 2 is be involved in your community, making friends, learning about other cultures, going to other churches, visiting neighbors, visiting and reaching out to the elderly. Compassion is taught. So being compassionate and empathetic to others is a key. So one of the things I did not want to miss the opportunity in the workplace to model, because many of us face this in the workplace, is when you're being marginalized. That was a big deal. And I'm so glad I have a partner here so we can model kind of the behaviors. So taking it forward from the playground, because it happens at 5. So know these things, young adults in the room. The principal theory never goes away. Your entire life, it lives with you. So when you're called in somewhere and you feel like you're shrinking in your seat because you're in trouble, it is alive and well at my age too, okay? So it never goes away. So that's the first thing. So getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is the goal, okay? And it's baby steps. You don't have to run. It's take the first step, then the second one, okay? So we're going to give you an example. You come into a room and you're feeling small. You're feeling invisible and you're struggling. There are 4 empty seats at this big round table. And you're brilliant. You're smart. You know this innately. You know that you have a lot to offer. Yet, this room consumes you. You choose to take a seat that is on the outer edge. It's not at the table. And yet, you've been vital in creating this beautiful work at the office, and you're sitting on the outside. So what I might do, if I'm sitting at that table and I notice that, is as we're having the discussion, and I'm going to put some loose labels here, the people that belong, the in crowd, are talking about all the wonder for this project that you've put your heart and soul into. How might we get that person that feels invisible because we sense and we know when we're sitting at that big round table what's going on? How might we get them to the table?
In that scenario, I would offer that the simple act of physically walking over to where that person is and inviting them to join the conversation will go a mile. You know, you may be walking 2 steps and it'll feel like you're bringing them with you for 2 miles. So the invitation to participate is really important in that scenario. And if they're physically not comfortable, you know, they still want to have their separation, then perhaps it's an invitation to showcase some of the work that was done, because that's the commonality. That's the starting point. Is this the project we're working on? And why don't you share with us what you've done on this project? So an invitation goes a long, long way. And in the smallest level. If I may, while I have it, I may answer just a couple of things. And while just a caveat, I am a practitioner, not a professional in another fields, but also a mom of a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. So 4th grader and a 6th grader. But one of the reasons why this is very meaningful conversation to me, and one of the reasons, frankly, why I chose the profession of employee experience or human resources or service to others, public service in particular, is that I grew up and lived in 8 different states before I turned 18. I was raised by a Croatian mother, an American father, and then experienced a divorce. And then my mother remarried an East Tennessean who had spent generations in East Tennessee. I lived all over the eastern portion of our nation and experienced 4 different elementary schools and 3 different middle schools. So I was everything from the mysterious new girl to the completely different and culturally unaware new girl. Experienced everything from full acceptance to full-on bullying, aggression. And it took my mother, who was really the stability, to teach me to overcome that or really navigate it. I will say I didn't overcome it until a little bit later, but to navigate it. And one of the things that she did was pay close attention to the names of people that I would use in conversation. And I didn't know this until I was an adult. She told me she would listen hard for names that were used and the names that were associated with positive feelings or a positive facial expression. And then she would jump on it and contact the parent of that person, that kid, and try to create opportunity for me to hang out with that particular child because she saw in me a positive, either like a half smile or, me expressing that this person was nice to me today or gave me this opportunity. So that was one way that she helped me to navigate that. The other thing is that she taught me that the family unit, the structure that I had at home with her and with my sister, would always be there for me. It was a reinforcement even when I didn't want to hear it. And then the final thing I would offer is that I was taught and then had modeled for me that every single person in this world is valuable simply because they exist on this world. And that it's up to me to listen long enough to uncover that value, encourage that value out, or invite that value out. So even the people who are being ugly to me or saying ugly things, those people have value. And maybe they don't even see it in themselves, enough to treat another human being in a different way. And so I've had a few experiences growing up as a child and then a teenager of offering that value to the very person who is being ugly and seeing that behavior completely transform. One, the behavior never transformed, but it stopped. That was good enough for me. So I know that's a little bit more personal than maybe what we had initially intended to express, but I really appreciate you asking how you can help your 10-year-old son to navigate what it is he's experiencing and offering a better and more inclusive experience for others, even at 10. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Hope Squad. Oh, Tasneem. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of the Hope Squad, but it's a group of elementary age. Are y'all familiar with the Hope Squad? Okay. So it's a national organization that has been established at the elementary age, and it's a group of peers. So it's the idea of peer support, which I think you brought up, right, Muhammad? So it's the idea of peer support at elementary age. And so I'm thinking of your boys, and so what these kids are taught, they work closely with the school guidance counselors and school resource officers to be equipped and taught about the different concepts of bullying, how to recognize bullying, age appropriate, okay, for elementary schoolers, but then how to be a peer supporter. And so many elementary schools here in the North Texas area are adopting a version of this, either the Hope Squad program itself or a version of it. So particular my kids' schools, they are calling it Coyote Cares. And it's an application process. So these students say, I want to be a caring coyote or a Hope Squad participant. And they fill out an application. And then a parent fills out an application and a teacher fills out the application, and then they go through this training. And so they do everything from hold the door open at the beginning of the school day and give somebody a smile and say, welcome to school, to handing out snacks during test time, so that there's this level of engagement and recognition for the other elementary school students that, okay, this is somebody who cares, who's going to potentially be there for me. And then when there's a problem, the idea is that student who's feeling bullied can go to a Hope Squad member and tell them. But that Hope Squad member has been taught and equipped with which adult to go to and how to go to adult, and has built up that practice, because half of this is practice, right? I mean, sometimes we just have to practice it so that when it does happen, we know what to do, almost like muscle memory. So I know that's from a practitioner and a mama's perspective and a child's, I guess, but I hope that is helpful. So Tasneem, did you?
One thing that I know, for those who don't know, Miss Laura Springer is our high school principal. Thankfully for me, she was my first principal at Coppell Middle School East. So now we're back together here at the high school. She is very, She's very dedicated to the connection she have with students, and not just seniors, every single student. I wish as parents you had the opportunity to see what we see. When these kids walk down the hall, she have no problem with saying their name, no matter how difficult, every last name. Something that I witnessed personally is during the summertime, even though school is out and most teachers are not working, Miss Springer actually goes to her office. She memorizes the face with the name. I'm not exaggerating. She spent hours on hours every single day during the summer memorizing these kids. Students, I mean, it's amazing. It is, you as parents, you are very blessed. Your child is not, hey, you. She says your child's full name. She asks them how they doing. She tells them information that they may not even be aware of. and say, hey, I see you made a 96 on your test. Good job. Walks up to them, give them a hug, tell them that she loves them. And there's not a child at that school who doesn't feel confident in knowing that they can go to Miss Springer at any time. But for our seniors that'll be graduating soon, she doing the PSAT. Seniors are not required to come to school that day. However, that day she specifically asked the seniors to come to school for maybe 2 to 3 hours. And during that time, that's when we, SROs, other guest speakers come in and we have this conversation with our seniors. Yes, ma'am. Can I say it, B? You want?
Well, I mean, fortunately, staffing, we don't have elementary full-time SROs, but we do have SROs assigned to our elementaries and middle schools. But we start with awareness, with drug awareness is fifth graders, I believe. I think it was fifth grade. We do that for them, and then we have we do kindergarten where there's just safety, general safety. But you're right. We don't target the bullying part. We only have those case by case. It will be something that's useful. It's something we can.
Speaking firsthand, they left in kindergarten and they didn't come back. No.
Right. Well, the thing is, the point of start is unknown. And it's one thing we can say it starts in second grade. We can say it starts in third grade. It's just the fact that it just needs to be discussed. It does. And the thing is, what I encourage for you, if you have an issue with your kids being assaulted or whatnot, is to contact us. And that way, I mean, we can look into these things further. We get these situations, on the regular. But you as a parent, if you're not getting what you need through the district, you can always come through us and we can do an extensive investigation as well. There's none too small, too little. But due to the education code, if it's something, the injury, it depends on the injury. And it depends on, and
Third grade and up has a higher than.
it depends. Yes, exactly. The age is, less than 10, but it's still something we're not going to ignore. We're going to definitely.
But I can say, the past 7 years of being in the schools, I've learned a lot that I didn't know as a parent. There are so many requirements upon the school district that they have to meet. I mean, that they have to meet. That is non-negotiable. That certain programs like this, unfortunately, have to take the back seat. I'm not a political guy whatsoever, but if there are certain mandates that are in place that they have to put in, we would all love for this. But if this is in place in the school, I don't know if a lot of people notice the school calendar runs on minutes. So X amount of minutes have to be completed for per curriculum for the students. And if those minutes are not adhered to, then the school district will be held responsible for that. So these are great ideas. I can give you the confidence of knowing these ideas are not just hoped for and wished by you. You have certain teachers that's been trying for years. I know Mr. Danby is the person who created Build Young Leaders. That's something he's been trying since I got there.
Because funding is there through bond money, but it's used for other things.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not a priority is what it is.
and
It's not a priority.
well, it's not that it's probably not a priority. It's what.
Money can go for new lockers. It can go for doing stuff to impact people's lives.
But what are the mandates that the school have to adhere to?
Yeah,
I mean, like we would think that, but I'm telling you, I've been privileged to witness what the school is. It's certain things I assumed as a parent that once I learned being on this side of it, that fully helps me understand why they're doing what they're doing. So if anything, maybe get further knowledge as to why certain things are not in place that can give you those specific answers. Because I actually have curriculum that I attempted to put in, and they say, T, we would love it, sweetie, but we can't do it because of this. Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, well, they have us there, but even our hands are somewhat tied.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to share, first of all, I want to tell you that God bless you for your courage. Okay, the courage to come here today. You're doing something right now. So I want to assure you with that. I also want to assure you that those of us that are here, that's why we're here, because we want to uplift you and help you. So make no mistakes. You're not alone. Okay. Also know that we have a personal relationship with the school. And this is the agreement so that there's complete transparency here and you understand where we're coming from. So here's our agreement. Our agreement is that we will stay in our lane, okay? We trust that the school has their lane, the school board has their lane, the police have their lane. As citizens, we have a say because we're part of this community, and that we will do what we think is right to ensure that people like yourself feel that you're being heard, okay?
You talk about modeling,
Yes,
and if I stay in my lane,
yes,
you stay in your
yes.
lane, then that's not speaking up.
No, we do speak up. So let me give you the example because I was going to give you that because we just lived through it.
I'm
So,
not like you because
yes,
you all are, that's your job,
yes,
speaking up, but I'm
yes,
talking about other
yes.
people in other lanes.
But we just lived through this. So here's the first thing. The first thing is every system in the world has its flaws, okay? So we want to call out the things that we get right. We get a lot right. In your case, obviously, there's room for improvement. So we will work on that. We have a relationship with Dr. Hunt. He's willing to come to the table and talk about these things. He takes it very personally when someone has been hurt or in some way does not feel like they were made whole. So let's roll up our sleeves. Certainly, we can repeat this over and over and over again. We can have this class for all of the elementary schoolers. I'd love to fill this room. Everybody in this room has invested their time today, and we're willing to do it again and again and again. So know that the change starts and stops with us and the attitude we take to drive the change. Sometimes it's not there, and there can be a million reasons why it's not. We're going to focus on how to make it happen. Okay, so the difference is in the nature and your come from. We've had to educate ourselves on the school code and the hierarchy that occurs when an officer is on school property and how that all works. So let's get educated in that space, and then let's get our questions down and put them out there. I'm sure if you have a question, there's probably 40 other parents that have questions too. So I'm willing to take that on. I don't want you to feel alone at all. We've all been through it. I walked through it with my own children. So make no mistakes. We're here to serve that purpose. It happens, but we also fundamentally believe it's because we get straight A's when it comes to our education. So a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. And unless you're walking through the fire at that moment, you're a little not worried about it because you feel so safe most of the time.
And I can't stress enough that if you let us know, a lot of time, I mean, the city is 14 square miles, and you have a department that I've been working for 21 years. We'll do whatever we can within the rights of everyone to provide a safe environment for these kids. So there's an officer that's assigned to the school that your kids attend. He needs to be made aware of what's going on, and that way he can further, provide the safety for them and let the staff know what they need to do. If it's me, I can do it too. Any one of us. And we have 5 officers that work. There's 6 of us total, including me. But there's 5 officers that are assigned to the school. We don't have one at every school. We don't have the staffing for that. Wish we did. But but we can be there within minutes and whatever they need. And if they need to have different messages, we have kids that have been assigned to different classes because they don't get along or whatnot. They make it work. And we even have sit downs and talk with them and know the complications and anything, the consequences that could happen and whatnot. But there are just certain situations where if the injury doesn't add up to the offense that we can't take. And then in the grand scheme of things, these are children that we're talking about. Do we necessarily want to put a kid in the slammer? Exactly. I get it. For making it, but it turns into bullying. It turns into stress levels on all ends. But to let us know so we have a starting point, we can nip it at that point. And that's what we try to stress with the administration of all our elementary schools and middle schools. We're at the high school, so we see the turnout there. But the elementary schools are kind of hard because we're not there 24/7. but we do visit them frequent. I visit them as much as I can. And if they're not telling us, you could probably stress that to say, can you let the officer know that's a sign of the school and we can help? Okay.
It's the hardest time a mother goes through because our job is to protect. And sometimes we are a lion that just wants to pounce because that's our nature when we have nurtured this child, right? So all of that's okay. It's okay to feel the way you feel, and it's okay to protect. But now we're teaching, and that teaching is, let me be your safe space. Right now, I can guarantee you, in these 5 feet, nothing bad's gonna happen to you, okay? And right now, that's what we're gonna get right. So, and you build on that, you build on it one step at a time. And then we take the back door, okay? So then the back door looks like this. I wanna give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But just to announce where my biases are right now, I'm hot. I don't feel good about the way this unfolded, and I need reassurance. So go for your gold. What am I looking for? I'm looking to be reassured that my child is safe. I'm looking to be reassured that my child is getting the education they deserve. I'm looking to be reassured that there is a process that is going to help to fix all of this. And then don't fall in love with the hows. Let someone explain to you what the hows are. How are we going to get there? And then wait your turn and then ask, what is my role in making this happen? And if you don't like what you hear, then the exchange occurs. You know, I'm not quite down with that. I can see this failure point. How might we address that? Okay? So just some modeling. And let me tell you, when we are telling you we're your friends, you can pick up the phone and call us to help navigate those things, because that's the objective, is to get better than we were yesterday, right?